Hey, we often talk about our preps and our pantries, but we almost never talk about our bodies. What will we really do in an SHTF situation? What will we need to do once we realize we don't have enough food? How long can we go without food? Now, I'm here to tell you, this isn't as hard as some would think. Yeah, I know, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours in a harsh environment, cold or hot. 3 days without water, the rule of threes, and don't forget about that fourth one, 3 weeks without food, although I've heard of people going further than that, Gandhi. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. But before we get into it, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. You might actually like what we're doing here. And yeah, let's get into it. To understand how we prepare our bodies for a SHTF situation, we need to go all the way back to the time when people were just learning to thrive. The ancient Greeks were first to start recording things, so let's look at them first. Their diet was actually pretty simple, and they did just fine. Raw preservatives, olives were common appetizers in the cities. Fresh vegetables were expensive, and therefore the poor city dwellers had to make do with dried vegetables. Lentil soup, the workman's typical dish. Cheese, garlic, and onions were the soldiers' traditional fare. And we really need to think about the soldiers too, because the common people back then didn't really eat a lot of stuff. They really did starve. They didn't really thrive. The only people who ate very well were the soldiers. The ancient Greeks ate fairly simple foods. Unlike some other ancient cultures, they did not consider extravagant and rich meals a good thing. The three main staple foods of the Greek diets were wheat, oil, and wine. Pretty simple. It sounds a lot like what we store. Okay, then of course there were the Spartans, and they ate some crazy stuff. But generally they stuck to the Greek staples with a more of a focus on fitness and nutrition and well-being, because they were the warriors. So you didn't see a lot of fat Spartans, I don't think. One of the quotes that I found was, the Spartan society was strong, but why? Because we ate well. Fresh food, fresh meats, fresh water, and wine. We also trained well. But yes, would training be possible without good food? Of course not. So we ate well, but not too much. Our Spartan warriors could not afford to be out of shape. Okay, so this makes sense. Basically, the Greek meals were pretty simple, actually. Breakfast was, bread dipped in wine. Lunch was olives and cheese, and more bread dipped in wine, or maybe a salted fish. It looks like supper were olives and fish and eggs and figs and legumes and asparagus and breads. But there's a trend here. There's no red meat. And then obviously their desserts were completely different, or figs and cheese, and I even see a little bit of olives drizzled with honey. Different, but okay. Sorry about that transition. Plane flew right over my house, and I didn't think you'd appreciate it. So let's continue. Next came the Romans, and we know much more about these guys. Once again, focusing on the soldiers more than anything else, because they ate better than anybody else. Their diets were mostly grain, wheat, barley, and oats. Wow. Okay. Yeah. They also ate spelt and rye. Just as Roman soldiers were supposed to dislike meat, that's not true. So too were they supposed to detest beer. And that actually is true, because they considered beer gruel. They considered it like lesser to their Roman wine, which was so much better. The Roman legion's staple ration of food was wheat. We should be storing wheat. In the 4th century, most legionnaires ate as well as anyone in Rome. They were supplied with rations of bread and vegetables, along with meats such as bread, mutton, or pork. Rations also depended on where the legion were stationed or were camping, obviously, because they would send their hunting parties out to kill everything that they could to feed the legion. But once again, the focus was on wheat. Food and drink in the Roman army, the meals of the Roman legionnaires were mainly based on wheat, once again, from which two types of food were made, mash or mash. It's a joke. One of them was called Pulse. It's not spelled P-O-L-S-E like in this article, because Google isn't that smart. It's P-U-L-S. It was an easy-to-make food that required a mixture of cooked wheat grains, water, salt, fat, and olive oil or milk. I actually contemplated for this video to like read you stuff while I cooked this dish, but maybe for another video. Now, most of this all comes down to the current Mediterranean diet. Right there. And where they focus mostly on grains, and then fruits and vegetables, you know, olive oil, that's that fat that your body needs, and then the dairy products, which I'm not a huge fan of. But this is the current Mediterranean diet, which isn't very dissimilar to the one in ancient Greece or Rome. Now, with all that said, you can see why preppers, you know, stock rice and beans and grain, basically dry goods and starches, because they're going to last and they're going to keep you alive. They're survival food. Now, back to the original question. How do we prepare our bodies for an SHTF situation? It's actually pretty simple. I use intermittent fasting. Fasting, you say? The plan that I use is also known as the 16-8 fasting plan. I do it almost every day, and I can maintain my sexy girlish figure. But anyway, it's actually pretty easy and offers a lot of health benefits. Some of those are fat loss, improved cognitive function, lower inflammation, lower blood pressure, blood sugar control, better metabolic health, and longevity. That's right, people who fast, they live longer. The plan is actually pretty simple. Basically, you don't eat for 16 hours, which sounds awful, but you get to eat for 8 hours after that. Now, what I do, because fasting is fasting regardless of what else you're doing, is I won't eat a meal until, or I won't eat anything that produces calories before 12 noon. And I won't eat anything that produces calories past 8 p.m. Pretty simple. So basically, I just don't eat breakfast. And I don't eat at night. It's really pretty easy. You can have your 3 regular meals. You can have a snack here and there. But for the most part, that's what's happening because it's changing your metabolism. So I'm really interested in hearing about what you have to say about this idea. Hit the comments below. Okay, so what have we learned? 1, for the most part, the diets of the ancients are what we would consider survival food. 2, starches are the main staple of survival food. 3, you can look as good as me, as long as you fast from time to time. And honestly, it's really easy to do, and most of us can stand to lose a pound here or there. Even me. Lastly, I'm not a doctor, so if you decide to fast and you die, this is your problem, not mine. Adulting is hard. Now, if you like what we're doing here, hit that like button. It really does help. And until next time, stay safe and have a great day.